And we're good. Good evening, everyone. I'm Greg Natterer, the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science at Memorial University. I'd like to welcome you this evening to our lecture series. But before we begin, I'd like to first acknowledge that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups, and we acknowledge with respect the histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province of Newfoundland and Labrador. We encourage everyone to reflect on these lands from where we are located and the Indigenous peoples for whom these lands are traditional territory. This Speaking of Engineering lecture series promotes engineering in our province and raises awareness of engineering-related issues among students, the academic community, and the general public, which we feel is very important. I'd like to extend special greetings this evening to our presenter, who will be Professor Darlene Spracklin-Reed, a lecturer in the Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science here at Memorial. This lecture series is sponsored by the Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of Newfoundland and Labrador, also known as PEGNL. PEGNL is an invaluable asset to our program and our graduates, and we're honored to partner with them to bring you this lecture series this evening. Mark Feuer is the COO and Deputy Registrar of PEGNL. He will speak a little later about PEGNL. For tonight's presentation, Professor Spracklin-Reed will talk about engineering as a caring profession and how engineers have always been connected to the communities they serve. To help build these types of connections and learn more about the communities in which they practice, engineering students have been completing work terms with community groups and not-for-profit organizations as part of their academic program. These experiences have been helping engineering students gain technical skills while learning to appreciate the roles that engineers play in the protection of the public and the environment. But before we begin, just a couple of logistical details. We'll plan to have time for questions after Darlene's presentation. We will use the Q&A feature, which you should see on the bottom right of your screen. You can type your question in there at any time, and we'll go through them at the end. As I previously mentioned, Darlene Spracklin-Reed is in the Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science at Memorial University. She's an engineer and educator with a background in curriculum development and community service. Darlene is the past chair of PEGNL, and she has served on the boards of the Canadian Engineering Education Association and the Newfoundland and Labrador Construction Association. She is currently a director on the boards of the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation and also Engineers Canada. Darlene received the PEGNL Outstanding Community Service Award, the President's Award for Exemplary Service to Memorial University, the Fry Family Foundation's Top 1% Elite Award in recognition of commitment to community service, and the Memorial University Alumni Award for Community Service. So clearly, Darlene has made exceptional contributions to the community, the province, and nationally. Welcome, Professor Spracklin-Reed. I'll turn it over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Natterer, for that kind introduction. I hope that you can hear me and my slides are showing okay on the screen. All right, perfect. Thank you. I'm here tonight to talk about engineering as a caring profession. And oops, I'm trying to advance my slides. Yes, there we are. So we don't often see that engineering is explicitly defined as a caring profession. Sometimes when we think of caring professions, and if you do a little searching around, you'll find various definitions. And most of them include things like jobs that include nursing, teaching, or social work, or professions such as nursing, social work. This is what I was able to find when I did a search for what are the caring professions. And then I did a search for lists of jobs for caring people, and I came up with this list and some worthy professions here: teacher, consider myself a teacher, but other ones that kind of fall within more of the healthcare professions, physician, social worker, etc. And then I did another search for the 20 best jobs for helping people. And on Indeed.com, I came up with this list, and I won't go through them all, but you can see there's a theme here around guidance counseling. We have firefighters, police officers, registered nurses, etc. But no engineers yet. I couldn't find the engineers. I went to look for jobs for people who wanted to change the world, and I got 20 inspiring jobs for people who wanted to change the world. And came up with another similar list. And well, you can see on here environmental engineers, and I guess arguably sustainable consultants could be some engineers in that category. But yeah, I'm still, where are the engineers? When our code of ethics for professional engineers and geoscientists specifically says that we safeguard the human life and welfare and the environment, and we hold paramount the safety, health and welfare of the public. And so to me, that defines a caring profession. We are called upon and obligated to care for the communities that we practice in. And in fact, I would argue that we are one of the most fundamental caring professions that are out there, and we always have been. And so I want, and why is this important? And it's important to me in particular because I want to inspire other engineers to use the skills that they have to help the world, and we do, but also for people to think of us that way. So you have a young, bright person thinking about, I want to help my community, I want to change the world, what do I study? I want engineering to be the first thing that pops into their mind. I'm going to study engineering as a caring profession. I have this poster that is part of, it's free to use, a lot of resources around STEM education, if anybody's interested. I have some that I can share, but this is a wonderful poster about engineers save lives and all the wonderful, inspiring things that engineers can do around disaster relief and many other things. So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about what we're doing to create a caring culture within the engineering profession, and particularly here in the Faculty of Engineering. And this, what I'm going to talk about tonight are the things that the pots that I've had my fingers in. There are many other things happening within the Faculty of Engineering that are connecting to community beyond what I'm going to talk about tonight. But these are the things that I've been personally involved with. But the list goes on, and many of my colleagues are doing very similar things. But really, for me, for working with students and creating this caring culture, it's all about those community-based experiences, connecting with community, plus teaching about community-based design. So that combination of engineering education and experience creates that caring culture, and that we're going to promote to other aspiring engineers. And one of the foundations of that is community-based design. And this is something that is the foundation of one of the courses that I've developed for the Faculty of Engineering. And so you may have heard a little bit more about community-based design. It's about the role that engineers can play in their community. What are the roles of other experts and other disciplines? What do they bring to the table when we're doing community-based design? And what is the role of the communities that we're working with? So that's what the course is generally based around. So as engineers, we know that we have that duty to protect the public and the environment. But sometimes we really need that connection to understand and protect those interests of others. We need to have a connection with our communities in order to really understand where we're coming from. Sometimes in the past, I think with engineering, we would come in as experts, and maybe we didn't have a connection to the community in which we practice, but that's changed over the decades as engineering has changed. But it's that building of connection that really helps us. I struggle with being able to protect a community that I don't understand, so I need to build that connection. And community-based design, as we teach in the courses that I have here in the faculty, talks a little bit about the connectedness, the similarities and the differences between intelligence and knowledge. So we're bringing the intelligence to the table. I guess there's lots of memes out there about engineers, I suppose, and our intelligence and what we bring to the table. But arguably that's what we bring, and the knowledge as well, and our engineering knowledge. But the community has intelligence, and the community has knowledge as well that they're bringing to the table. And they're related, but they're not the same thing all the time. And so our community-based design is about learning about the interconnectivity of those two concepts. And the work that we do in this community-based design sphere grew out of the work really of the urban design practices of the 1970s. It's really where this connection and desire to connect with community came from. It was really influenced by the work of Jane Jacobs. I think some of my students are a little bit tired of hearing me talk about Jane Jacobs and the recommendations of her books, and I've been giving them away a lot too to some of my students. But I really am inspired by the work that she did in the 70s and how and early in the 50s and 60s, and how her work has led to this community-based design that we're looking at tonight. You have probably heard about community-based design, and maybe not even in that language. Maybe you've heard it called user-centered design or community-centered design or participatory planning, all sort of different versions of the way that we connect with community. And these approaches include stakeholders in the decision-making process. It's a little different than sorry, I have trouble getting that word out, than consultation alone. Consultation alone is a process where we go out and we consult with our stakeholders. But here it includes stakeholders in the decision-making process with the goal of achieving a better and more sustainable design at the end of the day. So the community is actually involved in the decision-making. It's not, and right into the design process. They have a lot to give. And the engineer can often be the facilitator, the technical expert, perhaps, in the designs that we're doing. But it's really getting that integration of the community into the design process right from the beginning. And so it's not without its challenges. And in the courses that I teach that include the community-based design, we go through this as well, because it's important for us to realize that it's a longer process, and it takes building trust with the community as well. And so hence why it takes a little longer. The building and establishment of relationships takes time. We have to make sure that the stakeholders have real influence, and it's not just for appearance's sake. And these relationships can be ongoing, and they have to be long-term to make real impact. It can be a messy process sometimes with a lot of different iterations as we go through the design process, but we can mitigate some of that if it's really well defined and really well managed. But if you're engaging in community-based design, we have to acknowledge from the get-go that it is much more efficient to just come in and impose a design on a community. It may not work, it will not work for you long-term, and it will not be as sustainable. So investing this time and upfront with the community and building that type of trust and relationship really does pay off over the longer term. And particularly important as we're entering an era where sustainability of our designs is becoming more and more important. So before I get into the meat of this, we're going to talk about community-based work terms, but we're also going to talk about a related topic, which is engineering service projects. We have students working in both, and I'll talk a little bit about what they've been up to. But it's that we have some that are work terms and some that are service projects. But none of this could happen without the generous support of the Fry Family Foundation. They've been a supporter of my work for many years now, going on maybe 15 years. And I'll say that Dr. Darrell Fry is the original caring engineer. He often jokes with me about we're the only two engineers who go around hugging people. I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure there's more engineers out there who enjoy a good hug other than me and Dr. Darrell Fry. But his foundation really kickstarted my work, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today without his support, and I wouldn't be able to continue doing it. So they've been giving us some really excellent support. I also, before I get going on this, want to thank Nicole Myers and Michelle Craig in our co-op education department. Couldn't do any of this without them. They're real champions for this in co-op, and the work that they've done and the time and hours that they've put into making sure that this is successful and that it grows. I can't thank them enough for it. So I hope you're out there listening, and just know I really appreciate everything that you've done. So these community-based work terms, what are they? They're experiential learning opportunities. So students work with community groups and not-for-profit organizations. So we partner with the community, they receive some funding from the Faculty of Engineering and from the Fry Family Foundation that supports their work and enables them to have some income while they're doing this. But they give their time and their talent for the full semester to helping out a not-for-profit. I know that not-for-profits out there and different kinds of organizations always have a project or two that needs some attention and time and help. And we've got these clever, talented young people here. And so we've been partnering with them, and it's a win-win for everybody. The not-for-profit group or the community-based group gets a problem solved or some help with a project. The student gets to learn about the community and gain some real technical experience. And importantly, they get credit for their work term as well. So it's been immensely helpful to our students, especially as we've been navigating through the pandemic over the last couple of years. It started out with one student in the pilot program at O'Donnell High School back in 2016, and it's grown a lot since then. Since 2019, we've had 93 students who have participated and over 150 students in total. And so it's been a roaring success, I believe. And this does not count the numbers of students who have worked on community projects that were not work terms. I looked through those, and I'm estimating close to 200 students over the years have been working with projects that I know of in the community as service projects. And so I couldn't get them all on one slide. This is just a sampling of some of our community partners. We've been working with Food First NL, Co-Housing NL, the community centers, which are vital connections to some communities around the St. John's area. NL Eats, we've done a lot of work in food security. We've worked with O'Brien's Farm. We've worked with the St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank. We've been working with Global NL. We've worked with some fitness groups as well, Skate Canada and Avalon Nordic and the Tennis Club, the Social Justice Cooperative, the Foolvarium, and it goes on. And another important partner is the school district. We've been supporting robotics clubs and all kinds of STEM learning within the school system, and hopefully inspiring some more young engineers to come and join us. So I'm going to just run through some of the things our students have been working on. This is a picture of a hospital and the community that's grown up around a hospital in Cheliemba in Zimbabwe. We built the connection actually goes back to a Newfoundland doctor who was working at that hospital for about 20 years, and the connection grew out of that. And so our students have done a number of projects here, from working on facilities for the farm to irrigation project that you can see here, to solar power charging stations for the computers at the school, and the list goes on. So we've had a really great partnership with this community. And here's some pictures of solar panels getting installed on the hospital. And we've been working on some facilities for the chicken farm. The chicken farm feeds the patients at the hospital. So it's been a really nice project. Here's a pictures of some projects. We were working in New Orleans for many, many years. I say, hey, I'm going to say hi, April, and happy birthday. I know April's out there in the audience, and she's there in the red shirt and the orange hoodie. Volunteer over the years a number of times with us in New Orleans when she was an undergraduate here at Memorial University. And she's gone on now to her career. We just wanted to say I'm quite proud of you, April, and I wish you the best day today. And we have some other alumni here. We've got Dave and Maya. They both graduated from our program as well. And we did work in New Orleans for many, many years, and we partnered with the trade schools so that our students could learn from the trades and the trades could learn from our students, and that was quite a rewarding experience. And here's a shot of some more of our students working on the house construction here. And even through the pandemic, that didn't stop us. We were a little worried at the beginning. It's hard to keep connections going through a worldwide pandemic, but we just transitioned to working from home. And here's some of my fabulous students who kept going all the way through the pandemic, helping NL Eats and some food security projects and doing design projects for local community groups. And here's another group of them here. Some of them worked on some coding, some worked on, in the top left there, we were doing some municipal work in a program that we have called Rural Outreach, where these community service work term students work with communities on everything from GIS mapping to ensure that emergency response teams know where to go in a community if an emergency happens, to working on designing more accessible buildings within the community, recreation facilities, all kinds of projects for rural communities. We worked on the design of a greenhouse. You'll see in the bottom corner there. That was a greenhouse education center that's being proposed to be built on the property at Government House, and that will include community outreach as well. So we had some really great dedicated students who continued on with our service projects. This is another picture from a construction project that we had worked on in New Orleans, but I wanted to put this one in because I wanted to mention that's I didn't have pictures from early, so I didn't know it was going to grow so much. If I knew, I would have took pictures earlier in the process. But Tori is on the left there, and she worked with the Froude Avenue Community Center, was her first project, and that got her hooked on community service. And here she is doing another community service project later. And Christian on the right did a service project with Skills NL promoting STEM education within the school system. And here you see him turn up again on another project. And this is what happens when you get young engineers involved in community service and treating engineering as a caring profession. They get hooked and addicted to community service, and they just keep going. Here's a project that one of our students did with a school. I believe this was at the Trinity High School here near St. John's, and they were working on a hydroponics project here. So they're growing plants and getting nutrients from the fish tank, and they set that up as an education project within the school and taught the kids in the school how to assemble this. And that was a really interesting project because other schools then got really interested, and it rolled out to a couple of other schools as well. We had another student who's working with an environmental education center, and he worked on designing these solar panels and alternative energy system there for the environmental education center. I could go on and on. I won't show you all the pictures of what all, our 150 students have done. And here's a student who's working right now with volunteer fire departments. So she's writing an asset management plan for the town of Pooch Cove's fire department, and then that will be rolled out as a template, and our rural outreach students will continue to work with other volunteer fire departments to help them with their asset management plans. So her name's Holly. And this is a project that I'm really excited about. We've partnered with some social enterprises around the province, and this is a social enterprise that's focusing on a PTSD treatment center, and they want to have a maze there that helps people with reflection and mindfulness. And so one of our students, Clara, has been working with that social enterprise to develop some sketches for the maze that they're planning to install. And here's a shot of our greenhouse and community education and outreach center, that we had designed with Government House. And so those are some of the projects that we've been working on. I hope you got a taste for how we've been embedding our students into community groups. And again, they get full credit for their work term, and the community centers and schools and not-for-profit groups do not have to contribute financially to the work term. That funding comes from the Fry Family Foundation and the Faculty of Engineering. So it really is no burden upon the group, and everyone hopefully has a positive experience. But one of the techniques that we teach in the course that we've built around community design is the concept of a design charrette. And so this forms the basis of a field experience that students have in a course that we're hoping to have the field school. COVID messed a little bit with our field school concept, but it will happen. And the design charrette forms the basis of it. And it's a method of planning that builds connection with community, and again, comes out of the urban design world. So it's an intensive hands-on workshop that brings people together from different backgrounds and members of the community. And it's different than that straightforward type of consultation that I spoke about, because it really involves the community in the design process, not just getting input, but being really involved in the process of the actual design. And its intention is to capture the values and the ideas from the community. It's typically, the history of it really comes from regeneration projects. So the type of work that we were doing in New Orleans kind of built around this design charrette type of concept, but it has applications beyond regeneration and redevelopment. It includes decision makers and technical experts, but it also includes the community. And some of the strengths of this type of approach is that it can be really creative and dynamic. It encourages collaboration. It allows several different options and scenarios to be explored, and designers get that real insight into the community and the community values. And it gives the opportunity for community members to be involved in these design issues that really do directly impact them. So those are some of the strengths that our students learn about, and they learn how to do these types of charrettes. And being responsible engineers, we also look at the weaknesses of the process, and these need to be managed. It can create sometimes some unrealistic expectations in the community. Sometimes the things that come out of a design charrette are not technically feasible or possible, so we need to manage those types of expectations. It may not lead to the type of outcomes they're looking for, and the scope can be difficult to control, but if you know that going in, you can generally work with it. And sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, the experts may tend to dominate the process. So sometimes I need to be very conscious when I'm in this type of situation that I'm not imposing my engineeringness into it. Like, I have a vision of how I want this problem to be solved or how I want the design to be. And sometimes I have to pull back and really learn to listen to the community. And so that's a skill that we need to build. And it's a skill that I'm hoping to build in my students as they come through this course with me. And they learn about the process of a design charrette as well. And I won't go through all of that here tonight, but I wanted to give you a taste of the types of things that the students will be learning. So they learn about how to decide who the key decision makers are and prepare for the process. And they learn how to figure out who the champions are going to be, but just getting ready for that design process. And they learn about the execution of it, how to bring together people who should be in the room, and how to get that facilitation right, and how to facilitate it without dominating the conversation, and how to manage expectations. So they learn that as well. And then they learn how to do the really important piece, which is the follow-up. They learn about, how implementation can take a long time. I spoke about that earlier, that building of relationships and the implementation takes a little longer with this process. And so we need to manage those types of expectations, especially with community members who may not know that going in, that these things take quite a long time. And the keeping the participants in the loop can also take a long time, but it's very much worth it as we strive to have that sustainable, inclusive design. And so I wanted to end this with a equation, because I'm an engineer and can't have a presentation without an equation in it. So my argument that I put forth to you tonight is that engineering is a caring profession, that it's always been a caring profession, and that we perhaps there's an argument that we need a rebranding as a caring profession, but we've always existed in that way. And I want students and young people to think of us that way, that when they want to change the world, they want to make a difference, they want to enhance their communities, they think about engineering as one of their first options. And then when they come here, we provide them the support to grow into those types of engineers that truly care about community and are connected. And I think we're doing a good job of that here at Memorial University. This is just a taste of a sliver of my world as a community educator of engineers, but there is so much there are many other things going on in the faculty as well, in addition to what I spoke about here tonight. But I think it really is key that we have to have that education of engineers so that they know that this is something that we value in our profession, and they learn about the different strategies and techniques for connecting with community. But we also give them that real life experience and opportunity to connect with community, and that is what brings about a culture of caring, I think, within engineering. And so hopefully I know this is a lecture, but I'm seeing it as an argument that I put forth to you all, is that engineering is a caring profession. And I'm interested to hear what your feedback might be on that topic. And so that's my presentation for tonight. Thank you so much for everyone who attended. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Natter or Paul Martin. I'm not sure who I'm turning it back to.
Darlene, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Very, very inspiring work that you do. And you're right. I think engineering is a caring profession, and through the service learning that you led and you introduced in our faculty some years ago, that's just a perfect example as to how we as faculty members can, teach students and let them develop the skills that make engineering a caring profession. So, excellent presentation, Darlene. We have time now for questions. And so that's what I'll do now. And I'll open it up to members of the audience who are online listening to submit their questions.
Okay, I see a question here. Why do you
Yep.
think that engineering is not viewed as a caring discipline? How can us who are not educators change that? Well, I think we've been branded as the math and science nerds, I think, along the way. And I think traditionally people saw engineers as, or they kind of gravitate towards maybe the healthcare professions when we think of caring. But oddly, I always thought engineering was a caring profession. I went into it because I was trying to find a way to make a difference. And when I read through the calendar description of civil engineering, I thought, my goodness, I want a way to make an impact on the world, to be a civil engineer. I think that people who are not educators can do things as well to change the perspective on engineering and be very, I think, out there and in the community. I know many engineers who are Rotarians and do other types of service work, and I think valuing it in that way is important. And I think that the fact that our regulator values it as well, when we do our professional development, if you're using your engineering skills in the community, one can count that. And I think putting that value on it and being an engineer who's present and visible in a volunteer role or connections to community or serving their community can help promote it as a caring profession. And also thinking about the language that we use when we're doing our work. A lot of us, it's not even really about volunteerism. The work that we do as engineers is always enhancing people's lives. I mean, really, what do we do but make people's lives better and more comfortable and healthier? So I think it's the way that we speak about it and the language that we use.
Great, great. There's another question here. Do you see that one, Darlene?
Yep.
I can read them, or I'll just say it out. How
Okay.
do engineers strike a balance between taking the lead in situations and following a need from the community?
That's interesting because it does take a I'm just speaking for myself really. I am a bit of a type A person and I kind of go charging in there. And I really need to rein myself back and listen. And I have to remind myself to listen a lot and to really hear what the community is saying. And to be more the facilitator and the person it's not that we hand over, we have a responsibility to the community to do competent design. So we're trained as engineers, we have the technical knowledge and all of those things. We can't let go of that piece, but we can involve people in our design and our design projects as well. But again, it's about listening really, and to take a step back and to really try to hear what the community is saying and to have that back and forth. And it's really about the relationship. If you don't have the relationship, you walk in cold and you try to listen, it's often difficult to really get the message. But if you're involved and you're embedded in the community and you build that relationship over time, I think that's really where the balance comes from.
Great. Darlene, you have a nice compliment here. Great presentation. You're doing wonderful work. And so I noticed that's from Nicole, who you acknowledged earlier. So thank you, Nicole, for that. We have a question here that the design charrette process sounds effective once the problem is identified. What processes help community identify their problem?
Okay, no, that's a really great question. And in fact, my experience with community is they're generally really well aware of their problem. They may need some guidance to get to what the root of the problem is or what's really causing the problem. And again, that comes through the conversation and the relationship building. So sometimes you're in a community group, I'm thinking about some examples of ones that have evolved over time. I started working with a community once and they thought what they needed was for us to help repair homes, for example, in New Orleans when we were early in that process. And it turns out what through the community, and we got together and we were talking about it. And we had that good relationship going, and over a while of having a lot of conversations, we started to talk about what really is the root of the problem. What are we trying to solve? And what we're really trying to solve was safe homes for people to come back to. And then we kind of got into the business of getting places up to code, and then moving on to another one and getting it up to code so that it wasn't torn down by the city. So we weren't really in the business. It took a lot of conversations for us to realize, and the community to realize, what it was that they really wanted with us and what the root of the problem was. The root of the problem was they were losing their housing stock. And so oftentimes when you go into it, really, the community knows knows there's a problem, knows how it's impacting them, but it's again through those conversations. And sometimes the engineer is important to guiding that conversation, because we do kind of want to dig into, well, what's the root of it here? But the community usually is really well aware of what the problem is that they're facing.
Great. Darlene, you have some more compliments here from our esteemed colleagues. Dr. George, saying you're doing a great job, effective champion for engineering as a caring profession. And Michelle Craig, who you acknowledged earlier as well. Some very nice compliments from Michelle. Another question here. How do community groups apply to this program?
Okay, well, you can email me, or and we can have a chat about that. So normally what happens is it's kind of been word of mouth so far. Different community groups that we're connected to, but we're always happy to talk to new partners. So you can talk to me, Nicole Myers, Michelle Craig, and you can find all of our contact information on MUN's website. We should be pretty easy to track down, but we'd be happy to speak with anybody who has a group in mind. The only criteria is it's a group that normally wouldn't be able to afford to hire a work-term student, and that they're not for profit or some kind of community-based organization.
Darlene, are there times in your experience where native solutions have proved more efficient than a potential engineering innovative solution? Or does engineering always believe there is something better?
It's funny. That's one of the things, the challenge that we're trying to overcome. A lot of the work that we did with the community in Charette, Zimbabwe, came from the community itself. So really, we were there to help out with some the technical pieces, but there was actually a group, and I don't want to get too far into. There had been another group that had worked there before that came at it with a very engineering kind of traditional engineering type of solution, and then we got involved and kind of came at it from a community point of view, and the community already knew what they wanted to do, knew how to solve the problem. We just provided some technical bits in the math, really, but they knew what they wanted, and they knew how to fix it, and they knew how to solve the problem. It's just a matter of listening and then providing what we have as skills. But the community always knows what the challenges they're facing, and they often know the answer too.
Excellent.
I see a comment from Rob Sears. I haven't seen Rob in so long, but we graduated from MUN together back in 1995. So, hey, Rob.
Okay, I think that wraps up the questions.
Thank you, people, thanks everyone for the lovely compliments. That was very sweet of you all. I really do appreciate it, and I do this stuff because I love it, and I also do it because it's an awful lot of fun. And so if anybody is out there thinking about getting involved in this kind of work, the benefits, the things you do for the community are one thing, but the things that the communities do for you are, the benefits I've gotten out of this are amazing, and the connections I've made and the relationships I've built, it's really is the best part of it.
Absolutely. Looks like we have another one from Suzanne. Great presentation. Do you think in the broader engineering community that there is a resistance to community involvement on infrastructure projects? And if so, what do we do about it?
That's a great question. I do think that there is a little resistance sometimes. There's a little bit of a doubt that sometimes I think we feel as though we must be the experts and we must take responsibility for all of this, and we must bring our engineeringness to it. And that what does an average community member really know about infrastructure design? But again, they know there's so many different ways of knowing and being in the world. And how many of us know some really great engineers who are not engineers out there? The type of person who can really solve problems. And it's bringing those people into the equation is always a good thing, but there sometimes is a little resistance. And the way that we go about solving it, I think, is to create engineers who really get this from the get-go, who have these community experiences. I think that what we're doing here at MUN is going to create a generation of engineers who know how to listen and know how to hear communities and know how to be part of communities. And so I think that's how we solve the problem.
Okay, Darlene, I think we've wrapped it up with questions here. So I would like to say on behalf of all of us here tonight, thank you again, Darlene, for sharing these wonderful projects and experiences with us. I think people will agree with me tonight that you have inspired us to be more engaged in the community, and certainly you've convinced us that engineering is a caring profession. So thank you again very much, Darlene. For coming tonight. And we're not finished yet, though, because I would like to pass it back to Mark Feuer, as I mentioned earlier, the COO and Deputy Registrar of Paganel. Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Natterer, and thank you, Darlene. That was a fantastic presentation. Very, very well done. I had the pleasure of working with Darlene when she served on the Paganel Board of Directors for 2 terms. She gave up 6 years of her life to Paganel, and we're incredibly grateful for that, Darlene. Most recently as chairperson in 2020. And Darlene, I've always found that, you know, your passion for creating that connection between the profession and the community, and for identifying the critical role that engineering plays in changing and inspiring the world is incredibly motivating. I've always found that. You know, our professions, engineering and geoscience, they play a major role in our daily lives, especially in ways that many don't normally associate with these professions. But the work of our professionals helps the human race in far-reaching and inclusive ways. And there's no doubt that along with the know-how and the intellect, it's the drive to improve the quality of life for others that helps achieve this. And you know, some of the images, Darlene, that you included in your presentation tonight, I think really brings that point to life. And also, I think, you know, seeing that message and those values being passed on to the next generation of professional engineers that you just mentioned, Darlene, that's so encouraging, and it's so critical for the future protection of our society and for our surrounding environment. Paganel is delighted once again to be a sponsor of the Speaking of Engineering series, and we really value the close connection that we have with the Faculty of Engineering. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of the staff who make the series possible. And thank you once again, Darlene. I'm sure those watching tonight's event was both insightful and inspirational. So thanks once again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to add my thanks to, again, to Darlene for a fantastic presentation. I'd like to thank you, Mark, and Paganel's support for this engineering lecture series. I'd like to thank a few others as well. Paul Martin, who's on the line this evening from the University Center for Innovation and Teaching and Learning. He allowed us to keep things rolling with the technology well tonight. And of course, also Jackie Locke, our communications advisor in the faculty, as always. A great job organizing the event this evening, and just a pleasure for making it a pleasure for all of us to hear and watch Darlene this evening. Thanks, Jackie, Paul, Mark, Darlene. And thank you, attendees, for joining us this evening. Hope you enjoyed it. We will have others to come in the future. So that's it. Wish everyone a good evening. That's it. Good night, everyone.